Recording. Okay. Nels Cline from Wilco. Welcome to 98.9 KPNW.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's great to be here.
The new album is Cousin, and it drops on the 29th of September. And you are coming here for 2 shows in October at the Paramount Theater on the 17th and 18th of October. And we're thrilled about that.
Oh, I always love playing the Paramount, and I can't wait to get there.
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with this new record. The thing you see as soon as you start reading about it is that you guys used an outside producer for the first time in like 15 years. And for people who don't really know what the point of even having a producer is, what difference does that make to you guys? I mean, you've kind of done this yourself in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that it's always very collaborative. I don't really feel like it was some huge revolution that happened. But basically, Jeff just asked us if we thought it'd be cool to have Kate LeBon come in and produce the record. Much of the material we knew already and had approached. Some of it, well, I guess a lot of it was from this massive amount of material that Jeff wrote, much of which is what we call cruel country at this point. So there's a bunch of songs that I knew that Jeff wanted to approach them in a fresh way, let's say, and I'm guessing that that's where the idea of bringing an outside producer in just to shake things up a little or make it a little different. And so Jeff asked if we thought Kate LeBon would be a good person to do this, and we all agreed.
Uh-huh.
And as I understand it, her father is a longtime Wilco fan.
Oh, good.
So she probably heard a lot of Wilco, if not all of it, as she was, growing up and becoming Kate LeBon.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I'm pretty sure she would have heard the material that was being put forth for consideration for what is now called Cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing, because I didn't ask her, I'm guessing that she had some pretty specific ideas about what a new Wilco album would sound like if it included most of the songs that were sort of presented, which I believe there are going to be some more that aren't even on the album that will eventually emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you're hearing really is I mean, Jeff gave her free rein. She asked for things in sometimes very specific musical ways and sometimes in metaphorical terms. It was more of a layered record than a live record. And I think we realized that's how Kate wanted to work. And so we kind of eventually ended up going in individually, working one-on-one with her, with Jeff always being there, along with Tom Schick, our engineer, wonderkind, and I had a good time basically trying to make Kate's sonic vision come true. And then in the mix department, that was, Jeff and Kate and Tom working together and doing all kinds of things probably for quite a while to give it the sonic signature that you're experiencing when you hear Cousin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I always wonder if, I guess it's different in every scenario, but, if a producer is like the person who cracks the whip or the person who inspires you or the person who, has permission to say that thing you're doing right now kind of sucks. Let's get off of that and try something else. And obviously you sound like you guys were willing to sort of put yourself in her hands and say, all right, let's hear your vision for the way this album could sound.
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, her specific ideas or desires were hers, but the process wasn't all that different for me, personally speaking, from trying to come up with something that Jeff's going to dig on one of his songs, because I don't always have a whole ton of ideas at this point, maybe, or ever. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm open to suggestion as my point, and exploring the sonic possibilities of some of these songs is always kind of a challenge, and always pretty darn interesting, and I end up doing things that I would probably not naturally have chosen to do, and
Huh.
I kind of dig that.
Well, I listened to all the songs late last night because they just sent me this link, and from the very beginning, it's got that first track even starts with sort of a very atmospheric and kind of, I don't know, kind of weird, kind of scratchy sounds and stuff.
Right,
It's got
right.
some. I mean, I'm thinking that has something to do with you maybe on that one.
No, actually,
Not,
that's a lot of Jeff,
yeah.
and some of those sounds existed in Jeff's imagination and in reality. I think pre-Kate,
Uh
uh,
huh.
and that song has, been approached in some different ways, mix-wise, and ended up being even, I think, more kind of fabulously extreme in its finished state.
Yeah.
Infinite, we're talking about Infinite Surprise,
Right.
uh, and yeah, the original recording demo of that song was more monolithic and less, didn't have those big silences and breakdowns, which is something that I think Jeff was starting to mess around with even before we started recording Cousin in earnest.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I think it's perhaps a startling opening track for some.
Yeah.
I certainly find it enjoyable myself.
Well, some of the sound elements remind me of what I've heard of some of your solo work, like with the Nels Cline singers and stuff like that. That's more atmospheric, I guess, for lack of a better word. Because
Yeah, I'm
I've
not sure where
recently discovered that stuff, and it just sounds so incredible and beautiful to me, that stuff you're doing with those like 7 or 8 minute long songs. And
they're always
it's
long, right?
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's like a pop a gummy and put this one on kind of an album, I think.
okay, well, uh, I think a lot of people when they heard "A Ghost Is Born" and they heard Spider's "Kid Smoke" thought that, oh, that must be me because I was touring on the record, and
Right.
nope, that's Jeff.
Huh.
So a lot of times what people think is me is Jeff, or in the case of Cruel Country, it's Patrick. Doing all that amazing B Bender Telecaster stuff,
Hmm.
and I'm playing some square neck dobro or lap steel or whatever. But so yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of those really rather intense sounds that you're hearing on Infinite Surprise are Jeff. Uh, and I think I'm doing squalls of feedback back there somewhere. Uh, just sustained feedback with a hollow body guitar and just making a racket. Uh,
Nice.
there's a lot of little details went into that piece.
You guys just came back, or your last gigs on this tour were in Ireland and the UK and all around Europe, I guess, really, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you've obviously covered that ground a lot in your career, but how is that for you? What do you like about? What are there specific places over there that really resonate with you when you're on tour?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to like most of all of it,
Yeah.
but this was a really nice trip because it was so many. I don't know. I never really thought about my personal favorite places, but other than Scandinavia, where we did not play on this run, um, some of my favorite places were on the agenda, such as just various places that we've played in Belgium. I always really enjoy, but
Hmm.
uh, yeah, and I have some a couple of good musician friends there, and so being in Belgium was nice. But Spain is our kind of our biggest country, if you want to
Yeah.
look at it that way, and we seem to do quite well in Spain. And even though it was beastly hot, we could say, in Spain and Italy while we were there, those are two fantastic places for so many reasons. But certainly, I've been kind of fixated on Spain most of my life for
Uh-huh.
various reasons, not just musical. And then being in the UK, we hadn't played Scotland or Ireland in some time,
Right.
particularly Scotland. And it's not like we did a lot of gigs in Scotland. We just played Edinburgh, but it was great to be there. It was really, really great. And I have an insane amount of Irish DNA
Uh-huh.
from both sides of my family. So there is a certain kind of, I don't know, tickle or a resonance or something about Ireland. And just in the UK in general, food's gotten way more edible. So that's always It's like a big, it's a big plus. You know, it used to be a little traumatic.
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of an old cliche about British food. It's like, oof, really? Yeah.
Well, and Irish food and Scottish food, they weren't all that great either. But I was in England in 1968 with my family, and whoa, England was, whew, yikes. I don't even know if that I recognized some of that as food as a 12-year-old.
Well, as a country that's been through some hard times, I guess they had to get used to some of
Well,
that.
that's absolutely true. And wow, they're really crushing it on the cuisine front these days. I have to say, a lot of
Yeah.
these places, you know, and I'm Dublin uh, and Cork had amazing, delicious foods. Not that I'm going around sampling the haute cuisine of these countries, because I'm mostly just, um, if we have a day off, I just go try to find something edible
Yeah.
that's not going to kill me because I have health concerns. But so that's gotten easier in most places.
Yeah.
Uh, just trying to avoid the deep fried bread and you know, fat, mayonnaise covered fat. You know, I mean, the people eat to feel comforted. You know, I can't eat that stuff anymore. So
Man, mayonnaise covered fat. I think
yeah,
you've got something there. Yeah.
with lots of salt.
Wow. I have to ask you, this is kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but I am a huge Steely Dan fan. And I
Oh,
know that you have done some collaboration with Michael Lenhart, who's a trumpet player that has been playing with Steely Dan since sometime in the 90s, I
yeah,
think.
that's right.
Where did that relationship come about, and what insight can you give me
Oh, wow.
about that?
Well, I mean, this is a question I did not anticipate, and I could not be more pleased about talking about this. But anyway, I met Michael through my wife, Yuka.
Hmm.
Uh, he is somebody that Yuka had collaborated with. He was a neighbor where she was living, where I had ended up living for a while in the West Village in New York City. And and the first time I met him, she invited him over to play a little bit on a track that Yuka and I were working on for our duo, Cup. And and Michael and I just completely hit it off. And then we ended up just hanging out a couple of times at his apartment with his uh, wife and son, and having some pizza and talking about music. And he had all these record covers on the wall, and we started talking about arranging and mood, and you know, we started talking about Gary McFarland and Quincy Jones and all kinds of jazz related music. And so that's when I told him about this dream project that I had sort of simmering in my brain for 20 plus years, called Lovers. And he just said, let me help you with this. And I really needed help. I needed an expert, and also somebody who understood the concepts behind the whole idea of Lovers,
Hmm.
which he did. He got it right away, and so the rest is history. We had an incredible time collaborating on these arrangements and making this recording, and then even going to Europe and a couple of other places, West Coast, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and performing the music.
Hmm.
And he was an incredible person to work with in Europe, where we had only a handful of gigs, but we could only go over with the rhythm section from Lovers, which is my twin brother Alex Cline on drums, and acoustic bassist Devin Hoff, and Michael and me. And Michael would conduct, and with a different, mostly student orchestra, you could call it, I guess,
Huh.
at every gig. So every time we had a gig, which were mostly at jazz festivals, we had to rehearse in the morning with people we didn't know,
Hmm.
uh, other than in Milano, where I had my good friend Simone Masseron, great guitar player, playing the second guitar parts that Julian Lage played on the record. But everybody else, for the most part, were strangers. And Michael had to tweak the arrangements every time, because there wasn't always the exact same instrumentation. And he was just a genius at not just tweaking them in the moment, but also being incredibly patient, and uh, you know, heading off any problems at the pass by being able to see them coming. You know,
Hmm.
and I just, all I had to do is try to remember how to play my own music or how to play the standards that were involved. And then we go off and play them that evening, and then start the whole process over again the
Wow.
next concert. And he was just magnificent on multiple levels. And of course, I did insist that he play some trumpet and flugelhorn as part of this, even though it's
Mhm.
mostly about me soloing, because I based it on that kind of model, like maybe Stan Gets Focus, if you will, or records like that, where Paul Desmond with strings, or Sketches of Spain, or something like that, where there's this one solo voice. So, but he did get to play some trumpet, and of course he's incredibly good at that.
Yeah, he's good, very good at that. Yeah. Well, your show is in Seattle are the 17th and 18th of October, as I said. The Cousin album comes out at the end of September. Now, when you this is I guess maybe something all touring musicians go through when you're planning a tour and looking at set lists and stuff, and you've got a new album. I mean, I would think that Wilco fans, to a certain extent, are more interested in hearing some of your newest stuff than, I mean, it's like if you're Elton John and you're going out and you're not playing Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, somebody's going to want their money back. I would think,
Mm.
and the new stuff, they break out the new stuff and everybody heads to the beer counter or something. But I feel as if maybe Wilco fans are a little more interested in actually hearing what's happening now with you guys. Do you get that sense
Well,
from your fans?
I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, obviously they're interested in the new Wilco album. I mean, we have been cranking them out at a fairly uh, rapid rate, but
Yeah.
um, I also feel like that Jeff is very attuned to uh, pleasing the audience by playing a few favorites. Thankfully,
Yeah.
we don't have any big smash hits, which, well, obviously Elton John's a great example of somebody whose entire show could be smash hits.
Right.
But so that gives us a certain amount of latitude. But I think Jeff's pretty careful not to overload the show with new material, because I think a lot of people will feel like, oh, they didn't play Jesus,
Mhm.
etc., or whatever, even though we pretty much almost always play it. So I leave it up to Jeff. We're going to actually do something shocking before this run, which is we're going to rehearse.
That's
Uh,
something you don't normally do?
no, I mean, we we might do a little bit of rehearsing in Chicago. I know it's weird now, because I'm the only person that never lived in Chicago, but
Mhm.
everybody used to live there, and now only Jeff and Glenn live there. So
Mm.
getting together in Chicago is uh, a little bit more of a takes a little more effort,
Mhm.
planning, all that kind of stuff. But just how to address a lot of the sonic aspects of the Cousin will take a little bit of work. And I know that Glenn's got all this new samples based on the sounds on the record that were maybe electronic
Mhm.
triggers and all this kind of stuff. And we're going to work with these sounds and try to but we always try to kind of honor the sonics and tones and arrangements that you hear on the recordings as best as we can. And so we're going to make a little effort in that direction. Whereas, sometimes we can accomplish that in sound check time. Like sound checks, we usually don't need sound checks for sound. We use them to revisit songs, dust them off,
Mhm.
get the old brain cells fired up again. Um, and I'm sure we'll be doing that with these new songs in the course of the tour. But we're actually going to get together in Chicago prior to the tour and get down to some
Yeah.
serious cousin business.
Nice. Sounds great. Well, we can't wait to see it all live. The album is beautiful, and when you're talking about your side project stuff, I get the feeling that pretty much all the members of Wilco have like a very rich musical life outside of Wilco, and then when you bring all these elements together in whatever way the vision deems appropriate, it just is a beautiful thing. So we're looking forward to it.
I think that's a very accurate assessment. And I would also stress that it's unusual for a band to encourage that,
Yeah.
and the attitude has always been that kind of activity outside the band will always bring something back to the band. And I couldn't really be more grateful for that attitude, or that philosophy.
Yeah, I think that maybe leads to longevity because you have your little, you have your escape hatch outside of Wilco if you need it just for a while, right?
Maybe that's what it is, because now Patrick and I are the new guys, and it's been 19 years. Uh, pretty crazy.
Well, we'll see you on October 17th and or 18th in Seattle. The album Cousin drops on September 29th. Nels Cline, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us here at 98.9 KPNW.
Thank you, John. I look forward to my next Seattle visit.
Yeah, come on and have some of our cuisine if you'd like.
Oh, man, it was always good food there. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. I'm
Take
on
care.
the way. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.